good day, and welcome to the UFC 162 Media Conference Call. Today's conference is being recorded. At this time, for opening remarks and introductions, I would like to turn the conference over to Mr. Dave Schaller. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the UFC 162 Media Call, UFC 162, presented by Bud Light, Saturday, July 6th, from the MGM Grand Garden Arena, live on pay-per-view. Today we are joined on the call by UFC middleweight champion Anderson Silva, who today will be assisted by Derek Lee, and number one contender Chris Weidman. UFC President Dana White is unable to join the call today, so we'll have Anderson and Weidman, and at this time we will open the floor for questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schaller. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to ask a question, please press *1 on your telephone keypad. Once again, it is *1 for questions. If you're using a speakerphone, please be sure your mute function is turned off to allow your signal to reach our equipment. Once again, *1 for questions. I'll pause for just a moment.
And we can go ahead and start. Go ahead, I'm sorry. Nicholas Cunningham from Ola newspaper.
Hi, my first question is actually for Anderson. I know at the beginning of this, you weren't that thrilled to fight Weidman. Has that changed over the last few months?
No início você não queria enfrentar o Weidman. Alguma coisa mudou nos últimos meses? Você quer enfrentar ele agora?
Não mudou nada, não. Luta e normal.
No, nothing's changed. A fight's a fight, and this is another fight.
Okay, thank you. And for Chris, a quick one. Obviously, this is probably the most media attention you've got with a fight before. How are you handling that?
No, I'm handling it pretty good. It hasn't actually been too bad the last couple of weeks. We didn't have too much media, and it's starting to kick up now, but I kind of was prepared for it mentally, and it's just another part of the job, and it's just trying to enjoy it.
I'll sneak a real quick follow-up. I know that I asked Anderson, at the beginning he wasn't into this fight, and now it seems like he is a little more. What about you? Was that kind of frustrating at the beginning to kind of have your name pushed over, and now you're getting your due?
Right after the Munoz fight, it was frustrating to hear that they weren't interested in me, but it is what it is. I guess when the UFC decided to make the fight happen, it happened, and everything happens for a reason. God had a plan, and it worked out. I'm real excited for the fight, so I'm not really thinking back into the past and worrying about how frustrated I was. I kind of gave up on that, and then things kind of worked out well, so I'm happy.
Good. All right. Well, thank you both. Good luck to you guys.
All right, thanks.
Our next question comes from Dave Diebert with Post Media News.
Hi, thank you guys for the time. Anderson, there's always talk about, where you rank in terms of the greatest of all time and, pound for pound great, all that stuff. How important is it for you to be considered one of the all-time greats, or maybe the all-time great? How much do you consider your legacy at this point?
Qual a importância para você de ser considerado dos melhores de todos os tempos, ou o melhor de todos os tempos? Qual a importância do teu legado?
Eu acho que é dar bons exemplos para os novos atletas, para as crianças que são fãs do UFC e fazer sempre o meu trabalho bem feito, independente de vitória ou de derrota. Acho que o que tem que ser feito dentro do esporte como resultado de vitória, eu já fiz. Agora é fazer o que eu amo, que é lutar e deixar bons exemplos.
I think what's most important is to set good examples, and for those kids that watch the UFC and the kids that are coming up, and whatever I should have already done in the sport, I've done. I've win or lose, I've already done everything there is to do, and now it's just a matter of doing what I love to do.
All right. Who do you consider? I don't know, top 3, top 5, whatever. Who do you consider the greatest mixed martial artist of all time?
Quem você acha que são os top 5, os 5 melhores de todos os tempos?
Bom, minha opinião, pena número 1, Brain Culture, Chuck Liddell, Royce Gracie.
Yeah, in my opinion, B.J. Penn is number one, then Randy Couture, Chuck Liddell, and Royce Gracie.
Okay. Just one more for Anderson, and this is a random one. But do you have any specific memories of your very first UFC fight against Chris Lieben, either before the fight, coming into it, or your win over Lieben? You know, any lasting memories from that night?
Da tua primeira luta no UFC com Lieben, tem alguma coisa que, alguma memória que ficou com você, alguma coisa que marcou antes, depois, durante a luta?
Tem, né, cara? Foi a primeira luta dentro da UFC, né? Então, foi uma luta importante para minha carreira naquele momento. E eu agradeço o Chris Lieben de ter me dado a oportunidade de lutar com ele, ao Pena, ao Silva.
Yeah, there's always a lot of memories, and that was my debut in the UFC. So there's a lot involved in that fight. It was a huge step in my career at the time, and I can only thank Chris Lieben and Dana and Joe Silva for making that fight happen.
Okay. All right. That's good. I'll jump out and back in. Thanks, guys.
And our next question is from Kevin Richardson with the Baltimore Sun.
Thank you guys for having me. I have a question first for Chris. Chris, who have you brought in to work with to try to emulate Anderson Silva's style?
We brought in a couple different guys for the first time in my career. I'd say the main guy that did a great job emulating him with the stand-up, you know, the best he could was Wonderboy, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Kind of just getting used to it, you know, a quicker guy. He's a little smaller, but he has unorthodox striking, and it was, you know, definitely good preparation for this fight. And then I had a bunch of really good kickboxers, some undefeated kickboxers that were just living in New York City that we used. We used a couple-time national champion boxer for the stand-up. And then we had Renzo Gracie's academy. We have, you know, a lot of good jiu-jitsu guys who, you know, could kind of emulate, you know, the best they could some of stuff that Anderson does on the ground too. So I think we did it the best we could, you know, with this camp preparing for Anderson. So.
My next question is, what do you take from the first Chael Sonnen fight? Because I doubt if you can take anything from the second one. But what do you take from the first Chael Sonnen fight that you can use in this fight?
I mean, the obvious answer. You asking me?
Yes, to Chris.
Oh, okay. I mean, the obvious answer is, you know, the takedowns, you know, trying to, you know, expose him with the wrestling. You know, but we're totally different fighters. You know, I believe I could beat him, you know, before that fight, but there's, you know, he stays relaxed, and you know, if you're up tense and he's relaxed, eventually he's gonna, you know, be able to get off what he wants. So I think the main thing I learned from that is, you know, I thought Chael was a little bit too uptight and tense when he got the takedowns, and I think it paid off for Anderson to stay relaxed the whole entire fight because he was able to have the energy to knock that triangle in the fifth round. And you know, that's I mean, all props go to Anderson on that.
Okay, this question here for Anderson, and Anderson, and this is a little off topic, but how legit is your challenge to Roy Jones Jr., and do you really would like to fight him?
Qual é quando você quer lutar com o Roy Jones Jr.? É de verdade essa história?
Claro que é. Claro. Depois da luta do Chris Weidman, independente do resultado, eu gostaria de lutar com o Roy Jones. Ele já se pronunciou e disse que quer lutar, então acho que seria uma grande luta.
Of course, I want to fight him, and maybe after this fight against Weidman, regardless of the outcome, I would love to fight him, and he's already said that he would fight me also, so that's something I'd really like to happen.
The one last question, this is for Anderson. Anderson, do you train to capitalize on your opponent's weaknesses, or do you train to have them fight your style when you get in the cage?
Você treina para capitalizar nos erros do teu adversário ou para o cara entrar no teu jogo?
Poxa, eu treino para fazer o que eu sei fazer de melhor, que eu faço desde criança, né? Que é lutar. Eu não me preocupo muito com o que o meu adversário vai fazer ou deixa de fazer. Né? Eu treino para sempre melhorar o que eu posso melhorar. Eu treino sempre para me superar, para melhorar o que eu tenho e não preocupado com o meu adversário. Eu acho que cada um tem um jogo, ele tem as qualidades dele, assim como ele, como outro qualquer adversário. E eu treino sempre para me satisfazer, não para satisfazer ninguém ou para ser melhor do que ninguém. Eu treino para ser melhor do que eu sou.
I don't really train to think about my opponent. I train to do what I do best, and I've been doing since I was a kid, which is fighting. And I train to overcome myself. I train to satisfy myself, not to satisfy anyone else. So I'm not thinking about my opponent. I'm thinking more about myself and overcoming myself and getting better at what I do.
Thank you guys both, and I look forward to seeing you fight on July the 6th.
We move next to Gareth A. Davies with the Daily Telegraph in London.
Obrigado, Anderson, Eduardo. Good evening, Chris. How are you?
Good.
Chris, could I ask you, what do you think about almost every MMA insider saying that Anderson Silva's mental strength is off the scale and puts him on a different level to every other fighter on the planet, apart from their saying John Jones?
I mean, I never really heard that as far as how strong you're saying it is, but no, I think he definitely obviously has a strong mental game. I think a lot of the guys he kind of beats before they walk in the octagon, not really because of his mental games. It's more of his performances that he put on, kind of guys going there, worrisome and unsure about themselves. So I think his performances kind of speak for themselves and kind of draw into the minds of the guys who are going to walk in the cage with him if you're not mentally prepared and truly have confidence in yourself. So I think the main thing is to have confidence in there, and then the best guy's going to win. So I'm not letting that, mess with me at all.
Do you admire Anderson Silva?
Yeah, man. I mean, I've been definitely a big fan of Anderson's. Since I got to the sport, he was a champion. So it's a guy I've been, keeping my eye on since day one. And, just like anybody else, you gotta love the guy, watching the guy fight. He's relaxed out there, and he's done things that no one's done in the sport. So it's always a pleasure to watch, and definitely admire him.
Final question for you, Chris. If you do beat Anderson Silva, is it a logical thought process to think that you might step up and face John Jones because you will have beaten what people say are perhaps the number 1 and 2 pound-for-pound fighters in the world?
I mean, I gotta beat Anderson first, and that's the first big step. And I mean, whatever the UFC fans and the UFC want to do, and what they want, the fight they want to see, I'm definitely willing to do. But I got a big task in front of me, and my job is to shine on July 6th and show the world what I can do. And I'm just real excited to do that. And then if I do end up shining, then we'll see what happens. But
thank you, Chris. And a final question for Anderson. Anderson, do you think that the pressure of next week, of such a big event, of all the media calls, of all the demands on Chris that he hasn't faced in a title fight of this magnitude before, may have a bearing on him and his mood and his mental space for next week?
Você acha que a pressão toda da imprensa, de tudo que envolve essa grande luta que ele nunca teve antes, pode ter alguma coisa em cima dele? Pode ser ruim para ele?
Olha, isso é uma grande pergunta, mas tem que ser feita para ele, né? Acho que luta é luta, independente de mídia, independente de pressão, luta é luta, né? Acho que quando você tem experiência e tem algum tempo vivendo essas situações, você acaba levando isso na maior naturalidade, mas isso é uma pergunta que tem que ser feita para ele, não para mim.
That's a great question, but you should probably ask Chris that question. And I think that regardless of the pressure and the media and everything that involves the week of the fight, when you're doing this for a while, it just becomes natural. You don't really bother with it, but that's definitely something you should ask him.
Gentlemen, you are both an incredible credit to this sport, and we're all really, really excited about next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we move to Leighton Jin with the Desert Sun in Palm Springs.
Hi, thanks for hosting this. My question's for Anderson. It's outside of the octagon, but I was wondering what his thoughts are about what's going on in Brazil in regards to the protest with the World Cup. Just his general thoughts of it, because I know he's a soccer fan, and does he think this will spill over and lead into protest when the Olympics come around?
O que você acha dos protestos que estão rolando no Brasil sobre os gastos da Copa e tudo mais? Você acha que pode ter a mesma coisa sobre as Olimpíadas também?
Eu acho que o Brasil está passando por uma mudança muito grande e as pessoas estão tendo a oportunidade de exercer o seu conhecimento de causa. E é normal, é uma mudança normal. Eu acho que pra gente ter, o nosso país o Brasil é um país que tem tudo para ter um bom país para todas as pessoas, para todos os brasileiros, para os imigrantes. E o que está faltando é um pouco mais de consciência dos políticos. E as pessoas estão indo às ruas e manifestando o desejo de mudança delas. Acho que isso é fundamental para o país crescer.
I think Brazil's going through some big changes right now, and people are becoming more conscious about what's going on. Brazil's got everything to become a great country for Brazilians and for immigrants, and it's just a matter of having more conscious politicians, and now people are going to the streets in Brazil and protesting it and demanding that from the government.
Does Anderson worry about making any statements in fear of, because everything's so sensitive right now? I mean, does he fear that he can't make a statement one way or another? Like, as a soccer fan, I'm sure he'd want to go watch the World Cup and support Brazil, but obviously the protesters might look against that. Is that a dilemma for him?
Você sente que é tipo momento delicado, por exemplo, você ir num jogo ou você falar alguma coisa errada que quem está fazendo os protestos podem levar do jeito errado, ou que é momento delicado no Brasil para você ter uma
Não, eu acho que eu até me pronunciei pelo meu Twitter, né, explicando exatamente o que eu achava de algumas coisas sobre o protesto. Eu acho que o protesto é válido, desde que seja um protesto pacífico, né, sem destruição né, de patrimônio público, para que a gente possa ter o resultado que a gente precisa. Acho que quando você tem conhecimento de causa, você não precisa ser violento para expressar os seus direitos, né?
Yeah, I've even pronounced on Twitter what I thought of the protests. I think they're valid as long as they're peaceful and there's no destruction of any property. And as long as people know, have a lot of knowledge of what's going on and the protests are valid, I think it's a good thing.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to the fight next week.
And we'll go now to Stephen Marocco with MMAJunkie.com.
Hey, question for Anderson. Wanted to ask him how realistic he thinks a fight with Roy Jones Jr. is with his contract with the UFC right now. Does he think that's actually something that's going to happen, or is it just something he'd like to do?
Com o teu contrato atual do UFC, você acha que a luta do Roy Jones é uma possibilidade ou só um sonho?
Bom, sempre tem possibilidade de várias coisas, né? É uma luta que eu sempre quis, é uma luta que eu quero muito fazer. E vamos esperar, né, os próximos capítulos aí de Anderson Silva UFC para ver o que a gente vai fazer.
Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities of different things that could happen, but that's a fight that I've always wanted. It's a fight that I still want, and we're going to have to see how everything plays out and wait for the next chapter of Anderson Silva in the UFC.
Why does he still want that fight? A lot of people think, I think most people would say Roy Jones is way past his prime as a boxer. Why is that something that still interests him?
Muitos dizem que o Roy Jones já passou do ápice dele no boxing. Por que é uma luta que você ainda quer tanto?
Eu acho que ele tem um boxe ao qual eu gostaria de me testar. E eu sempre fui fã e gostaria de me colocar à prova com ele, para ver se realmente eu tenho condições de fazer.
I feel that his boxing style is one that I'd like to test myself against. I've always been a fan of his, and I just always wanted to test myself against Roy Jones.
Okay, and then with this new 10-fight deal, he'd be 44 years old if he did the 10 fights on his new deal that he just signed. How does fighting at that age sound to him? Does he think he's going to actually fulfill this deal?
E com esse contrato de 10 lutas, ele diz que você teria 44 anos quando finalizasse as 10 lutas. Depende de quantas vezes você lutar por ano, né? Mas o que você se sente de pensar em estar lutando até essa idade?
Olha, tudo é possível, né? Tudo é possível. Vai depender muito da minha vontade de continuar fazendo isso, né? Eu tenho outros planos, tenho outras vontades. Uma delas é, como eu disse, lutar com o Roy Jones. Então, vai depender muito de como eu vou estar me sentindo, né, depois das minhas próximas lutas.
No, everything's a possibility, but it's going to come down to my willpower and my desire to still be fighting. And I have a lot of other things that I want to do. I have a lot of other desires, and one of those is fighting Roy Jones. But we're just going to have to see how things work out in the next few fights and how I feel.
And we move now to Eduardo Sobaran with O Globo.
That's a question for Anderson. Anderson, você já falou sobre os protestos, eu ia perguntar sobre isso. Eu queria saber se você pretende ou se aproveitaria o UFC, o microfone do UFC após uma luta, para falar sobre política no Brasil.
Eu acho que esse tipo que você falar, eu acho que as pessoas vão agora ter um pouco da fé delas recompensada. É por isso que eu treinei bastante para essa luta. Quero continuar mantendo o cinturão, que é a minha forma de mostrar para o Brasil o quanto nós podemos e devemos fazer a nossa parte, né? Eu acho que é isso, eu não tenho que falar muito mais sobre isso. Acho que tudo está sendo feito, né? Eu acho que o processo é válido, as pessoas estão começando a impor um pouco do direito delas de serem brasileiros, tem um pouco mais de justiça, e é isso que está acontecendo, então as mudanças acontecem, então a gente tem que torcer e rezar para que mude mesmo, para que a gente tenha um país melhor.
The question was if Anderson would take the opportunity to take the UFC microphone and speak on a protest in Brazil, and he said that what needed to be said and what needed to be done is being said and it's being done, and now it's a matter of him going in there and showing Brazilians that what you have to do is do what you have to do, and his job right now is to fight, and people have to do their job, which is to still exercise their right of being a Brazilian and go to the streets and demand the things that they're demanding. So everything that needs to be said is being said, and people are going on the streets and they're pursuing that.
And we'll take our next question from Brett Okamoto with ESPN.
Hey guys, thank you for taking the time. This question is for Anderson. Anderson, after UFC 159, John Jones defeated Chael Sonnen. Dana White mentioned to reporters that he got a phone call from you. I'm just wondering, is that true? Did you speak to Dana on the night of UFC 159? And if it is true, what did you two speak about?
E aquela história que o Dana falou que você ligou para ele depois da luta do John Jones, é verdade?
Bom, todo mundo já sabe que isso não é verdade. Eu não liguei para ninguém, até porque eu nem tenho o telefone dele.
Yeah, I think everyone already knows that I didn't call Dana. I don't even have his phone number personally, so no, I didn't speak to him.
Okay, great. And then just one last question. There are some people going so far as to say that Chris Weidman is the toughest test of your career in the UFC. Does he agree with that, or does he think some of the other guys that he's faced have a little bit more of a record than Chris and were a greater challenge to him?
Tem gente falando que o Chris Weidman vai ser o teu maior desafio na carreira. Você pode concordar um pouco com isso, ou você já encarou caras muito mais paridade?
Toda nova luta é um novo desafio, né? Agora é aguardar, esperar o dia 6 de julho, e quem tiver melhor vai vencer, quem tiver melhor preparado vai vencer. Eu já Eu luto desde os meus 8 anos de idade. Eu pratico esse tipo de esporte desde os meus 8 anos de idade. Então, assim, não tem muita novidade para mim ali dentro. Eu acho que vai vencer quem tiver melhor, não tem nada do que ele fizer vai me surpreender. Derrota ou vitória andam lado a lado, a experiência e o tempo que eu tenho lutando me fazem lutar de uma forma a qual eu não me preocupo com o que o meu adversário vai fazer. Eu tenho que me preocupar com o que eu vou fazer, né? E a minha preocupação na atualidade é ser melhor do que eu sou, não ser melhor que o Chris Weidman ou qualquer outro adversário.
Yeah, and every new fight is a new challenge, and it's really going to be up to whoever's better prepared and whoever feels better that night. You know, win or lose, a loss and a win are always walking side by side, so that doesn't really matter because I've been doing this since I was 8 years old, and there's always new challenges, there's always new things, and my biggest concern is going out there and doing better for myself. I'm not concerned about what my opponents do. I want to better myself, and I want to overcome anything that I have.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And our next question will come from Damon Martin of BleacherReport.com.
Yeah, my first question is to Anderson. Leading into this fight, you always hear other fighters chiming in about their predictions, but did you see or did you pay attention to some of the comments made by guys like George St. Pierre, who said, not only would you lose, but he's confident, Weidman's going to finish you. I mean, do you pay attention to any of the things other fighters say about your fights?
Você presta atenção no que os outros lutadores falam das tuas lutas? O St. Pierre falou que achava que o Weidman ia vencer. Você presta atenção nisso?
Pô, imagina se eu ficasse prestando atenção em tudo que as pessoas falam, né, cara? Acho assim, cada um faz e fala o que acha melhor, né? Ele teve a chance dele de se pronunciar em relação a lutar comigo, ele não o fez. Então eu acho que, né, é melhor um papagaio falando do que uma tartaruga sem perna, né?
Imagine if I were to start listening to everything that people say. St. Pierre had his chance to pronounce himself about fighting me, and he didn't do it. So that's what he chose to say, and then that's fine. But I'm not paying attention to what everyone else is saying.
And a question for Chris. Chris, obviously, it happens with every fight. When a champion's involved, we want to talk about what's next and, these super fights and things like this. And today it's been Roy Jones. Does any of that bug you? Does it bother you that these things come up, or is it just typical pre-fight, things we hear?
I mean, I think Anderson's answering the questions the right way. He has to worry about me July 6th, and I guess he can't, tell you guys what to ask him, but I mean, I think the right questions are to ask about me and this fight July 6th, because I think this is going to be a huge fight for the history of the UFC, and I'm excited to, go out there and shine. So, yeah, a little bit, but he's answering it the right way.
For our next question, we go to Rodrigo Farah with UOL.
Oi, Anderson. Eu vou fazer em português, talvez o Ed possa traduzir depois. Você dividiu seu treinamento no Brasil, nos Estados Unidos. Eu queria que você desse mais detalhes primeiro desse treinamento e quem simulou o Chris Weidman, com quem você fez sparring para essa luta.
Olha, o treinamento foi bacana, foi legal. A gente começou no Brasil, né? Com toda a equipe do Tim Nogueira. Recebi o reforço do André Galvão. Dos meus amigos que vieram da Tailândia, ficaram esse tempo todo comigo lá no Brasil. Eu cheguei aqui nos Estados Unidos há 2 dias, a gente está terminando os treinos aqui, estou fazendo os treinos com os meus amigos de Cuba, que são wrestlers olímpicos de Cuba, e o treino está super bacana, estou com o meu preparador físico e com o meu treinador de jiu-jitsu, Ramon Lemos, e com o meu treinador de Muay Thai, Pedro Rios. Os treinos são bacanas, eu estou super feliz, assim, eu tô super feliz porque, assim, eu tô mais maduro, né, cada luta que passo eu tô mais maduro e tô conseguindo me encontrar em algumas situações das quais eu tinha deixado de lado há muito tempo, né, então isso é legal, porque me dá mais confiança, me dá mais condições de fazer o que eu sei fazer bem, né? Que é lutar.
The question was, explain how the training went between Brazil and the U.S. and who you brought in to simulate Chris Weidman. And he said the training went great in Brazil. He brought in Andre Galvão to help with his jiu-jitsu, and he was under his coach, Ramon Lemos, and Pedro Rizzo for Muay Thai. He also had some guys from Thailand come out and help, and he just got here to LA a couple of days ago. He's got some wrestlers from Cuba, and he's got a lot of good guys here helping him, and says he feels very happy. He feels happy that he's able to find new positions that he'd maybe forgotten from the past, and that gives him confidence to go out there and do new things and to feel good in the fight.
Anderson, mais uma agora só, voltando ao assunto dos protestos. Você sempre disse que a sua principal meta no esporte era servir de exemplo para os outros, né? Em meio a todas essas manifestações, é claro que até agora você estava fazendo seu treinamento, você estava preocupado com isso. Mas passada a luta com o Chris Weidman, você, por exemplo, iria para as ruas como um símbolo também para protestar? Ou não? Você não chegaria a ir para as ruas?
Então, eu dei a minha opinião, pelo meu Twitter em relação ao protesto, né? Eu acho que o Brasil, a minha preocupação continua com o Brasil, eu sou brasileiro e minha preocupação continua. Eu acho que os protestos têm que continuar assim, a gente tem que ter mudança em todos os sentidos, mudança política, mudança econômica, mudança educacional. E isso está acontecendo, eu acho que é válido, mas eu sair para ir para uma possível manifestação na rua é um pouco difícil, né? Até porque assim, não há possibilidade de eu fazer isso hoje em dia. Mas eu vou continuar apoiando o manifesto de forma pacífica. Eu acho que a gente tem que manifestar sim, mas de forma pacífica, sem ficar destruindo nada, sem ficar fazendo vandalismo, até porque o dinheiro que é gasto no vandalismo sai do nosso bolso. Então a gente tem que se conscientizar disso e os manifestantes que estão fazendo isso de forma correta tem que se impor um pouco mais para que a gente consiga o resultado que a gente quer, né? A gente conseguiu mobilizar o país, agora a gente tem que tentar manter isso de uma forma correta, né? Sem esses manifestantes aí ruaceiros, né?
The question was going back to the protests in Brazil, if Anderson, after this fight is over, would pronounce himself more and even consider going on the streets. And he said, I've already pronounced myself on Twitter, and I've done what I can do. And passing the fight, I'm going to still support the protest. The protest will go on. Brazil needs to go through some political and economical and educational changes. But for me to go on the street, I think it'd be hard nowadays for me to do that. But I'm supporting, and I think Brazil needs to go through some changes, and I'm doing what I can do.
For our next question, we move to Melina Losecki with Fox News Latino.
Hi, I have a question for Anderson, and I'm going to ask it in Portuguese. Anderson, você pensa que Weidman é sua maior ameaça considerando a idade dele?
Acho que o Weidman é a maior ameaça considerando a idade dele.
Não, acho que idade não tem muito a ver, né? Eu acho que luta é luta, como eu falei, luta é luta. Eu acredito que ele tenha se preparado muito para isso, até porque é uma luta que ele queria muito. Então ele está tendo a oportunidade de mostrar o quanto ele quer isso, né? Então, como eu falei, não tenho nenhuma pressão. Eu vou fazer o que eu sempre fiz, que é lutar com amor, com carinho. E não estou preocupado com o resultado, não. Estou preocupado em fazer uma boa luta e voltar inteiro para minha casa, para os meus filhos, independente de vitória ou derrota.
The question was if Weidman would be his greatest challenge due to his age, And the answer was, no, I don't think age has anything to do with it. Weidman's been wanting this fight for a while, so I'm sure he's going to be very well prepared, and he's going to be able to show on the 6th how bad he really wants this. And for me, it's to go out there and regardless of win or lose, I want to go out there and do my job, and I want to return home to my kids in one piece.
E qual é a legacia que você quer deixar no Brasil e nos Estados Unidos?
Eu acho que como eu já havia dito em outras entrevistas e falei até no começo, né? Deixar bons exemplos para os novos atletas, para os jovens, né? A gente tem tantos fãs, crianças, né? As pessoas mais velhas que admiram o nosso trabalho. Eu acho que é isso, eu acho que o que eu tinha que fazer dentro desse esporte extraordinário já foi feito, né? Então, agora é bater o cartão e fazer o que eu faço com amor, e o resto é deixar na mão de Deus.
The question was, what's the legacy you want to leave behind in Brazil and in the U.S.? And Anderson said, like I said before, it's about setting examples to the kids and doing good things. Everything extraordinary I could do in my career, I believe I've done, and now it's a matter of clocking in and doing my job and keep on fighting and doing what I've always done.
And for our final question, we go to Karen Bryant with MMA H.E.A.T.
Great, thank you. Two questions, actually, if I could. One for Anderson. I was backstage at Big Nog's fight in Brazil, and Anderson was really taking care of him, getting him, into the ambulance and everything after the fight. I'm just curious if that had any effect on Anderson's camp and how he feels about Nogueira, if he wants him to keep fighting, if he believes that he should keep going.
Como é que foi estar lá depois da luta do Rodrigo, ajudar ele a entrar na ambulância e tudo mais? Tem algum impacto em você e você acha que o Rodrigo deve continuar lutando?
Para mim não foi muito fácil, não, né? Eu acho que a gente se acompanha o Rodrigo há anos, né? Que tem uma relação de família. Nunca é fácil, né? Você, ver um amigo seu perder e ter que ir com ele para o hospital, coisa parecida, mas baixas são baixas, né? Algumas vezes a gente ganha algumas batalhas, perde outras, mas não podemos desistir da guerra. Quanto a ele parar de lutar ou não, isso é uma coisa que tem que ser perguntado para ele, só quem vai poder responder isso é ele.
Yeah, that wasn't an easy night for me. It's never easy to see a friend lose and see a friend and have to go to the hospital with them. And we've been following Nogueira for years. We have a family relationship, so it's not easy for me. But regarding if he wants to keep on fighting or not, that's a question that needs to be asked to him. I can't answer that for him.
Okay, great. And if I could sneak one last one in for Chris, I'm just curious if you are working with a mental coach or if you do any pre-viz or anything like that, because obviously the potential for a huge adrenaline dump is there, right before you walk out to the cage, and it's the biggest show of the year, and there's, obviously going to be a lot of pressure, and you haven't fought in a while, and I'm just curious what you do mentally to prepare for what's obviously the biggest fight of your career.
Yeah, I think if I let all that stuff get inside my mind and I was thinking about all that stuff, it definitely gets me. But, I think I'm just really focused on this fight, and I don't need a mental coach. I think if I had a mental coach, I guess it'd be Ray Longo, just talking to him every day and venting to him about things. But as far as like a psychologist or anything like that, I'm good. I have a psychology degree, so I think that might help a little bit. But I just know what type of mindset I need to have to walk in that cage, and I envision the fight every day and all day long, and just the biggest thing is to stay confident and stay relaxed and just make sure I'm dictating my fight once I get in there. And I'm not worried about any of the other stuff. I'm pretty good with having a strong mindset and not letting things get to me, because I think I got a little ADD, and so I can't focus on too many things at one time. I focus on one thing. So.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's question and answer session. At this time, I'd like to turn the call back over to Mr. Dave Schaller for closing or additional remarks.
Thank you very much, and thanks to all the media that joined today's UFC 162 media call. Special thanks to Anderson, Derek, and Chris Folks, we have a huge week planned in Las Vegas next week. It is Fight Week, and it kicks off Wednesday, July 3rd with UFC 162 open workouts. They are from 1 to 3 Pacific at XS Nightclub. Silva, Weidman, Edgar, Oliveira, Swanson, and Seaver will be working out for the fans and media. That is on Wednesday. Thursday, July 4th, we celebrate 4th of July with a UFC 162 press conference in the lobby of MGM Grand. Dana, Anderson, Chris, Frankie, Oliveira, Tim Kennedy, Roger Gracie, Mark Munoz, and Tim Boach will be participating. That starts at 11 a.m. Immediately following that, we have an awesome fan event. It is the UFC Fight Week pool party that is at Liquid at Aria. That starts at 1 o'clock. Tickets are available for that. Some of the over 24 athletes that will be attending Fight Week will be participating. And then later that night, we cap off a tremendous 4th of July with a free UFC downtown concert with 3 Days Grace. There will also be appearances and signings all over downtown. That leads into arguably the biggest fan expo ever, Friday and Saturday at the Mandalay Bay Event Center. And again, all of that leads into UFC 162 Saturday live on pay-per-view, 10 p.m. in the East, 7 p.m. in the West. For more information on Fight Week, you can go to www.ufc.com/fightweek. And we look forward to seeing everybody next week here in Las Vegas for Anderson Silva versus Chris Weidman. Have a great day, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's conference. Once again, thank you, everyone, for joining us.